Welcome everybody to Find the Money Behind the Couch workshop. I am your presenter today, Meredith Cowley from Custom B&B Hosting. I am the queen of Airbnb. I have a property management company along the east coast of Australia. And I'm here today to talk about how you can use Airbnb and other platforms like that to maximize the income and rental return from your investment property, or to make some cash from your property when you're not using it, like from your holiday home when you're back at work and it's sitting vacant. So I'm hoping to give you some gems and a bit of context and a few numbers and things to help you assess whether it's a viable option for your property. So quickly, a little bit about me. I have been working in the Airbnb space since about 2018, so pre-COVID, through COVID, and I'm still here. I'm passionate about it and think it is I think hospitality and investments and real estate are really exciting things to look at. I love looking at real estate. So yeah, here today to be sharing my bits of wisdom with you. So let's dig in and I'll tell you what you can get out of today. I'm going to share with you quickly the models that you can use to make a profit from Airbnb. There's more than one. I'm going to talk about the suitable Airbnb properties. I'm going to crunch the numbers on a real deal, give you a case study. I'm going to just give you the place to find and source data that you need to be able to evaluate your property. I'm going to compare a short-term rental versus a long-term rental using our case study as well. Give you some tips and tricks on setting up your Airbnb, and also give you 10 tips to rank high on Airbnb. Let's dig in. So the models, the leasing model, that's how I got started. It is where you rent a property from a landlord, you pay them rent, you turn on the utilities, the gas, electricity, water, whatever you need to, the Netflix and the internet. You furnish it yourself and you put it on Airbnb, ready to accept guests. You host guests for as many days as you possibly can for the highest nightly rate you can achieve. And after all your expenses, there is profit, and that's income for you. It's a great little model, and certainly what we use pre-COVID, and still many people in our network that are doing it very successfully today. Other option is you can own your own property and list it on Airbnb yourself, or you can own your own property and engage a property manager, such as myself, who will manage everything for you and should make it really hassle-free. So what properties suit Airbnb? Well, there's certainly been a massive trend towards properties that are a 3-hour drive from people's homes, properties that provide an experience. So, and regional areas that certainly were booming and still are very popular, but we're also seeing our cities coming back as post-COVID. People are now really interested in heading back into the city. People are looking for places where they can play and relax, so where they can go for leisure as well as maybe get a bit of work done. The working from home trend is certainly sticking around, and it's certainly enabling people to be able to have extended holidays that go longer than just the 2 days over the weekend because they're able to work from home. Holiday homes near the beach or in the hinterlands or in wellness areas are certainly a popular trend, and that will continue. Holiday homes in beach locations have been popular for a long time, but certainly the hinterlands and having a wellness experience are trends that are developing. Mini homes or themed apartments, tree houses, glamping, yurts, all that kind of thing are very popular. People wanting to have an experience. So if you have something unique, I would definitely encourage you to put it on Airbnb. In fact, Airbnb have just changed their dashboard to highlight categories. So if you've got a place with a pool, you can go into the pool category. If you've got a place that's architecturally designed, you can go into the architecturally designed category. If you have got a yurt, you can go into that category. And if you can get into a category that is not well populated, then you are going to really stand out from the rest. But not everyone's got yurts, funnily enough. And most of us have got, apartments or some lovely houses, and in really lovely places to stay, beachside places, or Melbourne CBD or Brisbane CBD. And they just need to be modern and well cared for, and be able to be beautifully furnished to meet the needs of your target audience. So I'm going to crunch the numbers on an owner model with you today. And the first step of that is knowing the purchase costs. So you want to know the purchase price plus the closing cost to give you the total purchase costs. And today I'm going to talk through an example using a purchase price with a 20% deposit and 80% borrow. And we're going to use 5% of the buy price to determine what our closing costs would be. So closing costs include conveyances and lawyers' fees, stamp duty, and that kind of thing. The next part is the setup cost on Airbnb. So property improvements may be required. So you might want to paint it and put new carpet down. Of course, if it's brand new and you furnish it, you can get the depreciation from that. Furnishing costs, this will vary depending on the size and the type of the property, but work on a turnkey finish. So that's everything in there. And you can get a company to set this up for you. A turnkey finish of about $13,000 for a 2-bed apartment, and add about $3,000 to $4,000 for each additional bedroom. And of course, if you go luxury, you're going to have higher expenses there. So the other part, step 2 of crunching the numbers, is you need to know what your annual income is minus your annual expenses. So to determine the annual income on Airbnb, you need to know what the nightly rate is. You multiply that by 365 days, and you multiply that by the occupancy. So we need to find this data, and I'm going to tell you how to find that in a moment. The expenses are going to include your running fees, so utilities, Netflix, internet. Might be body corporate if you've got an apartment. It's going to be some insurance, as you would as a landlord anyway. Council rates, as you would as a landlord. Your taxes, as you would as a landlord. And your annual loan repayments, as you would as a property owner. You'll have a cost of a 3 to 15% Airbnb fee. Every platform charges its fees. It's 3% if you manage the property yourself. It's 15% if you engage a property manager who uses the property management software. And then if you engage a property manager, you'll pay them a commission, roughly about 20%. And you might want to put some money aside for maintenance as well. So your annual cash flow will be determined by your annual income minus your annual expenses. So I just want to pause for a minute and talk about sourcing the Airbnb data. You can go to a tool called airdna.co. It is relevant to Australia, has data from Australia. It pulls the last 3 years from VRBO, which is Home Away and Stays, and AirDNA. They've got a tool in there called the Rentalizer. You can use this. It's a free tool. You can just create a free account, or you can buy a subscription for your suburb or area that you live in. You put in your address, you put in the number of bedrooms and bathrooms and the number of guests that you can accommodate, and it'll give you, as you can see there, an occupancy rate, an average daily rate, and a gross annual revenue. But then you need to go and verify this data a little bit. So you need to get onto Airbnb, look for comparisons, similar property to yours, really close by in similar streets, if you can dig down that much. Make sure they've got the same number of bedrooms, same number of bathrooms, got the same number of guests that they can accommodate. You open up their calendar, have a look and pretend you're going to book on a weekend at Christmas time during the week, so you can kind of get an average of what their nightly rates are going to be and see whether that compares and is accurate with what you saw on AirDNA. Have a look how booked out their calendar is. Does it look like it's 50% booked? Does it look like it's 100% booked? Does it look like it's not booked at all? And there's some things you obviously need to think about. Is that because people aren't booking too far in advance, but they are booking in the next 2 months, and those is that calendar well booked or not? Step 3 of crunching our numbers is looking at the profit analysis. So we want to look at the gross rental return or a cash on cash return. So let's have a look at the case study. This 3-bedroom house, it's got 2 baths, it's beautifully renovated. It's in a regional coastal town in Queensland. Its demand is driven by seasonal tourism. Off-season trades come to the area and work in construction jobs there. And families often visit their aging relatives or just come and have a time with friends there. So here's the example. This house was sold for $550,000. The 20% deposit is $110,000. They borrow $440,000, closing costs $27,500, and the setup was actually $25,000 for this property. So the cash they needed to get into this deal was $162,500. So the total for the deal is $602,500. Now, if you already own your property, you don't need to worry about this data. But if you're buying an investment property, this is the data you definitely want to be digging deep in. All right, so let's have a look of the annual income. This property can rent for $300,000 per night. Sorry, $300 per night and 365 days a year. It has an occupancy of 74%. So that gives an annual income of $81,030. That's gross. The expenses, as you can see, I've itemized them here to give you some guided figures. And the total of the annual expenses is $67,510. So our annual income minus our annual expenses gives us the annual cash flow. And in this example, it is $13,500. Not too bad. So the gross rental yield, so that's our annual income, $81,000, divided by the cost of the property times 100 is 15%. The cash on cash return is 8%. Remember that, because now we're going to dig into the long-term rental to give you a comparison. So your purchase costs are a bit less and your setup costs are a bit less because you don't have to furnish the property. The rent for this property, they could achieve $500 per week, and it could be occupied really well at 51 weeks a year. So that gives an annual income of $25,500. There's no utilities to pay. You will have to pay your insurance, taxes and council rates still as per normal. You'll still have to pay your home loan off, I suspect. Your management fees will be slightly less though, because that property manager doesn't do anywhere near what an Airbnb property manager does. And you might want to still have the budget for your maintenance. So the total annual expenses for this long-term investment would be $24,594. And so when we look at the annual cash flow, that leaves $906 in profit, that's cash in your pocket per year. So that gives a yield of 5%, cash on cash return of 0.7%. So let's line them up side by side, short-term versus long-term. The cash in your pocket is $13,500 per year with short-term compared to $906. 15% yield versus 5% yield, 8% cash on cash return as opposed to 0.7%. This is an awesome example of how Airbnb can maximize your rental return and really put a huge injection into your cash flow. But what are the benefits? Because lots of people get a bit worried about, guests having parties. But what actually, but there's ways of managing that, and that's part of your guest vetting. And there's, you can set up systems to be able to vet your guests incredibly well and totally avoid the parties. Your property is being regularly cleaned and maintained. You can switch it on or off. So if COVID hit again, for example, you can put the property back onto the long-term rental market. But when it is when it is not COVID and the season is ripe for short-term rental, you can switch it on and make it a short-term rental and really maximize your income. You can use the property at times yourself, and certainly perfect if you are using your holiday, it's a holiday home for you. You can increase, with increased income, you've got more choices. You can pay off mortgages, you can reinvest it. And there are professional companies that can take care of everything, or of course, you can give it a go and do it all yourself. So some things to note when you're setting up your short-term rental. You can cut costs by buying secondhand furniture or setting up the flat packs yourself, or you can save time, of course, the flip side of that, by engaging a professional company. Make sure you have short-term rental specific insurance. Check that the council allows short-term rental in the area. New South Wales brought in new regulations last year and restrictions on the number of days that you can put the property on short-term rental. For units, check that the strata bylaws allow Airbnb. Don't, check what the attitude is of the body corporate, because whilst it might be allowed in your building, they might make it really uncomfortable for your guests. So just check what the attitude is towards it. If you have time, you could manage it yourself. It's certainly a cost-effective way. Definitely get professional photos or use Box Brownie. And really quickly, Box Brownie allows you to take photos yourself, and then you can add them into Box Brownie and they will make them lighter, brighter, put something on the television, change the sky to just be a better looking quality photo. And you can use them temporarily to get your listing up and running before you get around to getting your professional photos completed. Just on to the next bit, which is your 10 tips to get seen on Airbnb. And this is about getting 5-star reviews, guest satisfaction. So if you've made it a smooth check-in, you've provided all the information to make it easy and seamless for your guests, you're going to get 5-star reviews. Make sure you are prompt in your responses to guests. Respond within an hour or within 10, 15 minutes of them messaging, and they will certainly assist you in getting good reviews. Make sure the property is spotless. Your overall pricing, Airbnb loves value for its guests. So if your property is competitive in the market, you will rank higher on Airbnb. Your total listing word count. Use all the space provided in the description. Make sure you fill it up with words. Describe and experience for guests so they can imagine staying in your property. Use the minimum night that you can for your area. So if you can allow one-night stays, give it some consideration. It will help you rank higher. Log into the calendar daily. Airbnb wants active hosts. Update your pictures and descriptions weekly. Use professional photos. Get your friends and family to save the property to their wish list. And they do that by clicking on the little love heart in the top right-hand corner of your property listing on Airbnb and add it to their wish list, because then Airbnb sees that your property is popular and of interest to others. And then you need to think about your reviews to stay ratio. So this is about having how many stays in relation to the number of reviews that you have been written. So ask your guests to write reviews. Lastly, have Instant Book switched on. This doesn't mean you have to accept every guest that comes and stays. You can make sure that they have prior positive reviews, and also have to provide government ID. So where can you find me? I have a Facebook group called Positive Cash Flow. You can get me at my website or in the number provided here.